Bill Belichick is no longer the head coach of the New England Patriots. The first time in a long time you can say that. Do you want to say for the first time ever that Bill Belichick is the head coach of the Carolina Panthers? Does David Tepper want to say for the first time Bill Belichick is the head coach of the Carolina Panthers? And if and when you decide that, you also have to evaluate Pete Carroll as the possible head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Let's get ahead of it, right? I know those conversations are coming. They may have started already. Let's get ahead of it. I don't want Belichick or Carroll in Carolina. I hope David Tepper does not want Bill Belichick or Pete Carroll in Carolina. And it's not because they're not good coaches. It's because of their age. And I don't know if that's ageist. Is it you might not
ageism?
You might not be allowed to say that out loud, but that's my thought process, and I'll explain why. But first of all, I think they both might be a little bit more realistic than you think. Right? Bill Belichick, I believe, is going to want to be the head coach and the GM wherever he goes. He's going to want personnel control. I don't see many teams lining up to give him personnel control, and maybe the Panthers would because they're desperate. And if they're the only one making that offer, maybe that's the one he chooses. Same is true for Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll had a lot of say over the roster in Seattle, and it may be a situation where he's going somewhere where, right, he wants to leave a bit of a legacy of a turnaround. He seems like one of those guys that's like, hey, we're going on a hike. We can go to the left at this fork in the woods, and it'll be a nice, flat, gradual rise to the summit. Or we can go to the right, and that one's going to have a waterfall we have to travail and a ravine we're going to have to go over. And he's like, well, let's take the challenging one. And guess what? If you're that kind of person, you choose the Panthers over everything else. If you're looking for a challenge, there's one in Charlotte.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots – got to get my PA NFL teams aligned. Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, said this about Bill Belichick coaching elsewhere.
I thank Coach Bill for his hard work and dedication. It'll be difficult to see him in a cutoff hoodie on the sideline, but I will always continue to wish him continued success, except when he's playing our beloved Patriots. So I thank you all for coming here today.
If he goes to the Panthers, won't have to play the Patriots often, which could be an appeal, right? Maybe he wants to go NFC to not confuse fans. Who knows? Evan Cohen of ESPN, who you can hear every morning right here on 99.9 The Fan. Unsportsmanlike, it's our morning show. Evan Cohen had this to say about Pete Carroll to the Panthers.
Pete Carroll is known for positive reinforcement. Pete Carroll is a pat on the back guy, not a stab in the back or stab in the front guy. Pete Carroll is a culture changer. Pete Carroll is positivity. Pete Carroll is old enough where he could have that executive role. David Tepper, Carolina Panthers, offer him whatever the hell he wants. He should be the head coach. And part of being the head coach, he should also be the team president. And you should make him bring a coach in waiting with him. Change the entire culture. David Tepper should get out of the way and hand this franchise in Carolina to Pete Carroll.
By the way, I agree you need someone upbeat. You need somebody that's going to bring a new energy to the room. But guess who else was upbeat? Frank Reich.
Was he, though?
Yeah, heck yeah. You couldn't tell that guy it was snowing outside. He'd be like, nope, sunshine. Oblivious, maybe another way to describe it.
Yeah.
But what did we lose? 7 straight? Well, we're right around the corner from success. Here's the thing. Everything Evan Cohen just said about Pete Carroll is correct. And all of the glowing tributes to Bill Belichick are correct. They're both good coaches. Surprise. The guy with 6 Super Bowls and the guy with a Super Bowl and a national championship, pretty good at the whole football coaching thing. They're still 2 of the best. Next year, wherever they're coaching, if they're both coaching, I'm going to consider those teams 2 of the better coach teams in the league. But Bill Belichick is 71 and Pete Carroll is 72. I would love to have them on my sideline this year. I wouldn't give them personnel power at all, but if they're willing to just coach the roster I give them, I would love for them to be in Carolina. The problem is the roster that I want to give them to coach is like 4 years in the future. We broke this down earlier this season. I love that we did it because now we can reference it and it's not like, oh, 2020 hindsight, you're changing your tune. We did this exact exercise. We said next year, a sign of progress is just Bryce Young making progress. The year after, you want to be kind of in the mix, and if everything goes right, maybe you're in the mix for a playoff spot. The year after, winning the division is the expectation. The year after that, Super Bowl contention. That's a realistic growth. That's linear, upwards, getting better every year, drafting well when you have picks, making moves, being well coached. So that by that logic, that little time frame that we had described weeks ago and nobody had any complaints about, do you really want your entrance into contenderdom, your entrance into being a legit contender in the NFL to come with a 75 or 76-year-old coach? Because I'm comfortable saying Bill Belichick still has the goods next year. I'm comfortable saying Pete Carroll can still raise the energy in the room next year. Or am I comfortable saying in 2028, 2029, that's still going to be true? I don't know. Imagine if Andy Reid took over the Chiefs, right? He was an established coach, showed himself as a very good coach in Philly. Mm-hmm. He took over the Chiefs and then 4 years later retired. That would have been what, after Mahomes' rookie year? Because he would have had the Alex Smith years. I would have been like, see, what a great hire. He's turning things around. All right, now, oh, look at this. He finally got the last piece to make them a true contender. See ya. Good luck with who was probably the best offensive assistant at that point? Nagy?
Yeah, probably would have been Matt Nagy.
He probably would have taken over. Wheels fall off. Right? I don't want to say, and the coach in waiting thing is fine, but are you 100% sure on the coach in waiting being as good as Belichick or Carroll? I don't think so. I want to bring somebody in this year that can be effective, right? Raise the energy, do all that, but also grow with them so he's peaking when the roster's peaking. Or at least he's not on the way out when the roster's peaking. You have to think about this. We think about this when you're building a roster player-wise, right? You don't go get the running back first because the running back has the shortest shelf life, right? If you go draft Saquon Barkley as a rebuild, running backs, what? Optimistically, 7-8 years in the league as elite players? Okay, so you get the running back this year. You get the wide receiver the next year. He's good for 12 years. You get the quarterback the year after. He's good for 15 years. Then you get the offensive line. All right, well, now you got 2 years of running back left before it all crumbles. Meanwhile, if you get the quarterback first, then the receiver, then the line, then the running back, your offense has 7 or 8 years because everybody's still on the good side of their expiration date. So don't bring in a coach with an expiration date when everything else is fresh. That's foolish. So if I'm a team, you know where I think Belichick's going to go?
Where?
None of the 8 teams that are open right now. I think he's going to go to one of the 2 or 3 best teams that lose the first week of the playoffs. If you're the Cowboys, you lose week 1 of the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. McCarthy's kind of on thin ice. People don't realize, but yeah, I could see that
And you have the opportunity to bring in Belichick to try to be the final piece to get that core over the hump?
I could see that. Now, if you mention it, I never thought of that until you mentioned it. I can 100% see that.
I mean, think of the teams in the playoffs that have like legit aspirations. If they trip up in the first round, by the way, I'm now my like hypothetical, I'm going down that path.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think Belichick could do with Micah Parsons?
Oh, God.
He'd go back to his old Giants defensive playbooks for Lawrence Taylor.
Oh, yes.
It'd be really fun. He'd go back to his old Vrabel playbooks and have Micah Parsons catching touchdowns as a tight end.
He probably would, actually.
I mean, it's the Cowboys. If the Eagles trip up in the first round, if Tampa gets them, Nick Sirianni, Jeffrey Lurie, that owner, is not patient. It'd be weird, very, very weird, seeing Belichick on the side in a Kelly green hoodie with the sleeves cut off. But that's where I think he's going to go, because if you're a team that's all in for right now and you think you just need a really good coach to get you over the hump, that's where Belichick comes into play. He's 71 years old. If you need a guy to, take 3 or 4 years to build and then give you a 10-year window to go win a Super Bowl, that's not him, right?
That was Sean McVay.
Yeah, that was Sean. Or like someone like Tomlin, right? Like, I'm not saying he's on the move at all, but I'm saying someone like, you can get an established coach that very obviously still has, decade plus of being a super effective coach, but they're not in their 70s. Same with Pete Carroll, right? Pete Carroll tells me if you have a great roster with bad vibes, you bring in Pete Carroll. Because he's gonna bring good vibes and positive energy and a lot of gum wherever he goes. That's what you bring in Pete Carroll for. Not the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers need somebody that's, gonna buy a house, not rent, right? Or as my mom says, right, when somebody comes over and they have a jacket on, if they don't take their jacket off, take your jacket off. Stay a while, right?
Yeah.
If you put your jacket on, it makes me feel like you're just stopping by, you're going to leave. Take your jacket off, stay a while. They need a coach that's going to take his jacket off and stay a while. Not somebody that's like, well, I got this house in Nantucket, I got this house in Florida. This is kind of a nice spot between the two. So, in a year or two, I can just hop on a plane and I'll be home, and then I'm done. It's not what you need. Not what you need at all.